you are carrying this on, and it also will be carried into the next 100 years of service from you. Also, I want to wish all of us a happy birthday. And I'm not going to ask you to sing happy birthday, but this is really an exciting year. It's really an exciting year for all of us for service. What is our motto?
We serve.
What is it?
We serve.
What is my personal motto?
You don't get very far until you start doing something for someone else.
Thank you, Helen Keller. You don't get very far until you start doing something for someone else. I live by that. You should live by that if you are a lion. If you don't, then get out of lions. What we stand for is service. Unselfish service without expecting anything in return. That's hard to do, isn't it? Years ago, when Lions was in its infant stage, I was asked a very insightful question. What if men and women who are successful were to place their talents to work improving the society in which they live, their communities? What would happen? Using their talents, their ambitions, what would take place in that community or that society? Well, I immediately realized the importance of that question. And after much thought and discussion with our board, we decided that our motto should be, we serve. We serve with our drive, we serve with our talents, we serve with our abilities, to bring all that together to make this world a better place when we leave than when we came in. That should be our legacy. As a lion, one must always remember, we are not lions for ourselves, we are lions for those who are not. And lions have always had an impact upon the communities, the state, the nation, and now the world, more so than any other service club in existence. Let's hear a round for that. That's important. That's exciting. Lions, you can't take anything with you. What we do for ourselves will die with us. What you do for others will live and become immortal. Plaques are wonderful. Service awards, well deserved. Pins, it's nice to have collections. But we can't take any of that with us into eternity. What we take into eternity is a legacy of what we have done for humanity in our service. That is really, really important in my life as Melvin Jones to realize the tremendous legacy that we have as individuals in changing lives, changing communities, changing the world. That's extremely important. This has always been my desire for our service organization since the inception in 1917, when we started out across 48 states with approximately 800 members. Our theme, to do for others. However, you must realize, all of us here this morning, that service clubs were not a novelty in 1917. Nearly every town in the 48 states had a service club, and larger cities had more than one service club. Typically, the clubs would get together, have lunch, have fellowship, do a little singing, listen to a speaker, either boring or exciting, have some jokes, do a little fellowshipping, but there was no thought at all with many of these service groups to service. Usually service to the community was not even hands-on. In fact, wholehearted service was far from the norm. The preponderance of service clubs, now get this, to neglect service in the communities had prompted popular novelist St. Clair Lewis in his 1922 novel Banquet, if you read that book, to criticize service clubs by calling them Babbitts. Who was the main character in his novel was Babbitt, and afterwards the word Babbitt enters the English language as self-unaware, self-promoting, selfish, hypocritical, professional businessmen. You scratch my back and I will scratch your back. Now how would you like to have that as a lion placed across your chest? No way! That is not what our club stands for. That is not what a lion stands for. This is one of the reasons I became disenchanted by the luncheon business circle of Chicago. It was a narrow-minded, selfish, self-centered interest business club, a good old boys club from Chicago, and I did not like it. Not at all. Lions is not a good old boys club. We are here for a purpose and a reason. All of you. Service. Unselfish service to humanity. I want that to be our legacy. Now, to counter this conception of service clubs as Babbitts, I dislike that word so much. In our first Constitution, we approved and stipulated that a member would not be permitted to make a racket of his service club by using it as a means of financial gains. I don't want to hear that from any of the clubs and lions, that you're using it as a financial gain, a personal financial gain. We were adamant on service to the community. We wanted to actually do something for society and the world. This is why service clubs can never be any better. Now listen up, Lions. This is why a service club cannot be any better than the men and the women that espouse the basic core beliefs of that club. And do you know what they are? The core beliefs of Lions. That makes us the greatest service club on planet Earth. Our core beliefs, established in the beginning in 1917, promoted the practice of good government, good citizenship, and to take an active interest in the civic, cultural, and moral implications of that community. Our core beliefs would bear in mind one's obligation to our families. Family, the foundation of civilization. The family, the core to our society. And when the family begins to disintegrate, that society will begin to disintegrate. Our core beliefs promote high ethical standards. Are you listening, businessmen? High ethical standards in your business. Whatever you do, men and women, high ethical standards. At the 9th Annual Convention at Cedar Point, I was there last week. No, I did not ride any of the rides. I got sick a couple months ago with my grandchild on one of those whirly things. And but we know there at Cedar Point on Tuesday, June the 30th, 1925, Helen Keller, who's with us this morning, spoke to the club. Lions Club International was only 8 years old that year, growing rapidly. Each year we saw large increases in membership in 48 states and Canada. There was a strong sense among us that the movement would gain momentum worldwide and become a formidable social force. But the question that hung in the air at that convention for all of us was, what direction should Lions go? Now, we had a purpose to some degree, but there was a lot of confusion, if I can remember that year. We had a clear-cut mission to society, but we did not have a specific purpose overall as a club. America in the 1920s had awakened to the industrial movement. Model Ts rolled off the line in Detroit. Telephones, refrigerators, even vacuum cleaners became commonplace in our homes. It was an era of movies, legends, heroic feats, optimism in the 1920s, and visions of prosperity filled the air. Life was on an upswing for the average American. But sadly, despite the fame of Helen Keller and individuals like her, those with disabilities continued to face huge obstacles. Being blind was indeed a handicap. Schools, workplaces, and even the average home were inhospitable to the blind and the handicapped. Education was particularly problematic. There were no more than around 300 Braille books in existence at that time, and at a cost of 20 times more than regular books. It became cost prohibited to a lot of the blind. Helen Keller had assisted in putting to rest some of the myths about the inherent capabilities of the blind with disabilities, but the majority of the blind were still shunned by the public. The sad assumption that people with disabilities suffer and deserve only our total pity. There's no hope for them, was the consent of the average American. America's transformation on blindness was born at the Breakers Hotel at Cedar Point. It is difficult to appreciate today the public esteem in which Helen was held. She didn't cross the ocean like Charles Lindbergh. She didn't hit home runs like Babe Ruth. She was famous not because of what she did. She was famous because of who she was, along with her teacher. And her teacher very seldom gets recognition, as she should. Helen Keller triumphed over her disabilities and seemed to stretch the boundaries of human possibilities. People all over the world who met Helen Keller walked away convinced they were in the presence of hope and greatness. We can go so many days without food. We can go so many days without water. But we cannot, as a human being, go 1 minute without faith, without hope. That is so important for human existence. And Helen Keller gave that to us. The fact that Helen Keller, whose uplifting force delivered her over the handicap of blindness, even to the point that she would meet us at Cedar Point in the summer of 1925, when Lions precisely were floundering for some type of service mission, became a miracle in itself. Think of it. Helen Keller at Cedar Point. Her car broke down. Am I correct, Helen?
Yes, sir.
And who brought you to Cedar Point? Can you talk? Nope, she could not talk. Somebody brought you to Cedar Point. Was it a lion? All right. And changed Lions forever. In the summer of 1924, the American Foundation for the Blind hired Helen and her teacher to raise funds for the organization across 48 states. Helen had mixed emotions. If you talk to Helen about the tour, to begin with, she decided not to accept an offer to speak at Cedar Point because of, I guess, the teacher was not feeling well, and both of you felt like you should stay in California instead of coming to Cedar Point. Persistence. I love that word, persistence. Winston Churchill's favorite word. Persistence, persistence, you never give up. And there were about 10 lions that continually wrote her, called her, telegraphed her, constantly on her until she probably felt guilty. And she changed her mind and she decided to come to Cedar Point. That evening, Helen became the match that lit the flame for our mission to the blind, and has fostered not only other blind-related service projects, I can't name them all, such as First Sight, a tremendous worldwide program to prevent blindness through cataract surgery, over what, 100,000, maybe more at this point, the time we're dealing with, that has received financial help from Lions for cataract surgery. Eye clinics, Leader Dog, schools for the blind, countless others. We can go on and on and on. It doesn't end there. It spills over into other areas of service. And it goes on and on and on and on. We don't want to forget our homeless. Yesterday I spoke about traveling to St. Louis to speak. And as my wife and I went underneath this one bridge, I saw all these tents, all these sleeping bags. What's going on? I thought St. Louis was a prosperous town. Homeless people. Homeless people everywhere. And how many cities have I been in, or you, Akron, Cleveland? There's tent cities. Lions, step up. I know some have with your food banks. How many clubs here are involved in food bank programs? Most of you. Well done, good and faithful Lions. That evening, Helen taught us something that changed Lions forever and the world. Her speech galvanized us. It gave us an overreaching mission. Individual clubs have been working with blind since 1917. We're aware of that, aren't we? To a limited degree, you know. But something happened at Cedar Point. In less than 10 minutes, in less than 500 words, she ignited what we needed in motivating our service club. She changed the course of Lions history, ultimately the personal lives of untold millions across this planet, by giving us a vision. But it's sad to say it took a blind person to give us sight and vision for these needs. To this day, I was there at Cedar Point. I think I was about 15 feet from you, Helen, on the stage there at Cedar Point. And I still remember those specific words. Will you not constitute yourselves knights of the blind in the crusade against darkness? And I, Melvin Jones, I very seldom cry, but my eyes were watering up. You touched me that evening at Cedar Point. May Helen's words continue to burn in our hearts today. We must never become complacent about what we do in society, in our communities. In one of her last speeches to Lions, I love this, she shared her thoughts, and I'm quoting her. Someday you will come together and look over the fields of your endeavors. If I am alive then, I shall stand before you with glad confidence and say to you all, well done, good and faithful knights of the blind. And you will say with equal joy to me, we have received as richly as we have been given. there is a destiny that makes us all brothers. None goes his way alone in the world. All that we do in the lives of others will always come back into our own. Let the word go forth from this time and place to the peoples of the world with this message. A new generation of lions dedicated to the continued commitment of serving and to fulfill the challenge of Helen Keller will come forth. There will be, as our international president so eloquently shared, new mountains to climb, new rivers to forge, new heights to conquer, new programs to start, new opportunities, new clubs, new individuals. 100 years of continued service. You have heard, in conclusion, of the 4 chaplains, you veterans. Who here has heard of the 4 chaplains in World War II? Okay. A Catholic priest, a Lutheran minister, a Jewish rabbi, and a Methodist. Is that 4? On a transport ship in 1941 to England to serve as chaplains to our men and women who will soon be facing Adolf Hitler. Going through some troubled waters known for U-boats. All of you know what a U-boat was. They sank many a merchant ship. We ran out of military ships at that time because we were sending so many supplies and ammunitions and people over to England that they resorted to resort boats and ships, and that's what this was. The 4 chaplains were on that ship. It was struck by a torpedo from a U-boat, and it was sinking. Now this is what I hope of all lions. And if you don't get anything from Melvin Jones' speech this morning, I hope you get this. I don't know, well, I know the one was a lion. I don't know about the others. I would like to think they were all lions. As the ship was going down, these 4 ministers, am I correct, gathered around where the life jackets were. And they started passing out life jackets to as many sailors as they could. Finally, they came down to the last life jacket. And the 4 men took off theirs and gave it to 4 sailors. And the one sailor, the last one that had the life jacket, ran back across the 4 chaplains, and the one chaplain said, "Where are you going? I've got my gloves. I need my gloves. It's cold. The water's cold." And he reached in his pocket and said, "Here, take my gloves. I have an extra pair." Liar, liar. And minutes later, those 4 chaplains went down with the ship. What does the good book say? Greater love has no man than he that gives up his life for another. I would like to think that those 4 chaplains were lions. And I would like to think if I, Melvin Jones, would have been there alongside those 4 men, I would have taken off my life jacket and I would have given it to one of those young sailors. 100 years from now, lions, I hope we will hear those same words from Helen Keller. Well done, good and faithful knights of the blind. Well done. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Well, if Helen Keller changed the course of our organization, she changed the focus of Lions. I think we just heard from the man who changed the world by starting Lions Club International, because we are all over the world and we do great things. Thank you. In your book, your pamphlet, you will see Lion Kenneth Hammondtree's bio. He still has his hat on, so he is still in character. But you can read his biography. I have a card if any of you want to get in touch with him. Let me know. But if you've been to the breakfast earlier during the convention today, or yesterday's conversation with Helen Keller and Melvin Jones, I really hope that you learned something. Since this is the Melvin Jones Fellows Key Member Breakfast, I would first like to ask that all the Melvin Jones Fellows please stand to be recognized. Thank you. I was asked if everyone in the room was a Melvin Jones Fellow, and clearly many of us are. Next, I would like to recognize all those Lions who sponsored a member. If so, any member, any number of members, would you please stand? All right, please remain standing. Anyone who sponsored 5 or fewer members, would you please sit down? 10 or fewer. 15 or fewer. 20? Wow, 25 or fewer. 30 or fewer? How many? How many?
56.
How many? Wow. See, if you just ask one, maybe you can reach that number. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Before I ask District Governor Larry Williams to come up for the benediction, please do not forget to wish our state administrator a happy birthday today. We did sing last night, so I'm not going to make everybody sing again today. And as you leave, if this is the last event of the convention you will be attending, please leave your badge holders and leave your name badge in it. Take the ribbons, but leave these. These are new this year, and we do not want the next district to hold a convention to have to purchase new ones. Thank you very much. Mr. Governor Larry?
Thank you, Council Chair.
Please bear with me. Melvin got me a little choked up this morning. Bow our heads, please. Your good and faithful knights, thank you, Heavenly Father, for the inspiring words today. Let us be guided by you and by what we have learned. Allow us to reach those in need by Melvin Jones' example of service to all. Help us see the service right in front of us and give us the pride and strength of a lion to fulfill that service. As we leave here today, be with us and safe travels to all. This we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Have a nice trip home. Thank you there.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
Like all your
One more picture, and you'll be delighted. One more picture. Thank you. That I haven't done it. Just to. Except for the water. They had it for some more. I mean, just look at what else I'm doing. It just took